Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents. We interview mystery writers, thriller writers, suspense writers, and all sorts of writers. You can find out more about us at blackbirdwriters.com. And today we are delighted to have Ann Jaffarian with us. Ann is the author of 3 critically acclaimed mystery series, the Odelia Gray series, the Ghost of Granny Apple series, and the Madison Rose Vampire Mysteries. And recently she launched 2 non-mystery series, the Zelda Bowen series, a humorous set of novels featuring a single woman searching for adventure and herself as she travels the country in an RV, and the Dead Woman Driving serial novel about a woman living off the grid to save her life. Ann also writes general fiction and short stories and is a regular contributor to Winnebago's Winnebago Life blog. And in addition to writing, Ann is sought after as a motivational speaker, and she's experienced with libraries, fundraisers, and conferences. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you're coming to us from where right now?
I am at East Totten Trail Campground in North Dakota. Right on Lake Audubon.
On Lake Audubon, wonderful. And I should tell people that Oscar is with us today so that he doesn't bark through the interview. Now, I remember all the way back when I was first joined Sisters in Crime, you had just started the Odelia Gray mystery series. And I thought of you as a pioneer because you were presenting a plus-size sleuth without apology when everybody was, in their size 7s. And I'm wondering, did you have any trouble getting that book to print, getting it to publishers? What was the reaction of the readers?
The reaction of the reader was fabulous. It was trouble getting it published. I had an agent at the time, and she told me when I presented it to her, no one wants to read this crap. And actually, I have a YouTube channel called The Novel RV, and AKA Fat Woman Driving, and with no apologies. And I just did a video called No One Wants to Read This Crap, about how that book took a journey to being denied representation, to being self-published, to getting representation that championed it onto a publisher. And it went on to launch my career.
That's wonderful. Did they try and get you to say, okay, well, this is great, but she needs to talk every 5 minutes about wanting to lose weight?
No, my publisher did not.
Thank goodness.
The publisher recognized exactly that it was different. It was funny.
Yes.
She was a normal person, but it was interesting that a couple of times when I went to speak about the book, I had a few people take me aside and say, I think I would prefer it if she showed she was more interested in losing weight and gaining her health back. And I said, she's not unhealthy, she's not unhealthy. And that annoyed me, but the publisher championed it. They loved the book. No
I am so glad.
The readers loved it.
I'm so glad you didn't. I have read books, whether it's, weight or smoking or whatever. It is like they keep pounding on it so much that you're like, where'd the story go? I'm getting so annoyed with this. I just want the character to like herself or himself so that I can like them.
Yeah.
I don't care.
When I show her binging on ice cream and things like that, and then eating salad for 2 days. And that's what normal people do.
Yes.
We eat cookies and then we eat fruit salad the next day,
Yes.
And so I wanted her to be very real. And like I said, when she found a home, there was no problem.
Excellent.
And the readers, just the mail I got from readers was just tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
Finally, somebody normal.
Yeah.
Yes, because I can relate to all of that too. It's fantastic. And kudos to you for sticking to your guns. I just, after you started that series, then you kind of took this dive into paranormal, kind of getting darker and darker, sort of, because they're so humorous. You moved to the Granny Apple series, which when we think of ghosts, we think, oh, it's a ghost. And then vampire mysteries, which are like, oh, it's a little darker. What drew you to go in that direction?
I was just compelled to write them. I mean, it wasn't even planned. The Granny Apples wasn't even planned.
No.
No, it was one of those things that my editor at the publisher said, we're looking for some ghost mysteries. And do you know of anyone writing it? And I went, oh, I have the short story I started. So I pitched it a short story, and that went on to launch another series that is equally popular with Odelia. And the funny thing is, those series have both been around forever. I mean, forever. And there have been no new novels on them for a couple of years, although there's a new Odelia coming out next year.
Oh, you answered one of my questions. Okay.
Yes. And there's a short story in Granny Apples coming out at the end of the year. But for a couple of years, I put a lot of things on hold while I established a travel writing career. I actually do travel writing a lot. But, it's just so funny that wasn't even on anyone's radar. And when they said, somebody who's writing it, and I showed them, pitched them the idea of my short story, next thing I know, I have this long series there too.
You inspired me to check out Julian, which I hadn't really heard of after reading Granny Apples, and it was very nice. I grew up in Illinois, and we had apple orchards, not right next door, but within 20 minutes. So I was so excited to find out California had apple orchards.
Yeah, very famous ones too. And as for the Madison Rose, that was another thing. I was just sitting around and I went, what if? And I came up with that idea. Excuse me, I have allergies, and I'm out
no problem.
My allergies are just kicking in. So
I don't know anybody who doesn't. So
yeah, and mine change every time I change to a new area and climate. I have new allergies. But Madison Rose, there are 2 books. They were contracted for 3, and then the publisher dropped it after 2. And I still have readers saying, "When's that 3rd one coming?" It's been years. And I did start it, but it's way down my priority list right now. But there is one started. And I miss writing it. I like writing the darker stuff. When you write the funny stuff, then it kind of is fun to write the darker stuff.
Yes, definitely. And you when you were talking about prioritizing, you have so many, you're not shy about going into new genres. You've written mystery, paranormal mystery, vampire mystery, erotic romance, women's fiction, and nonfiction. I wondered if changing genres, well, you said that the publisher asked about a ghost story, but for the other stories, was changing the genre, was it nerve-wracking? Did you worry that readers might not follow you, or?
No, I write what inspires me. Like the erotic. There are 3 novellas in my Winnie Wild erotic series. There will be no more. I knew I had her story to tell, and I was going to tell it. I didn't care, what readers thought. My agent at the time said, "You have to change your name. You cannot put Ann Jaffarian on these because it'll upset your readers." So I did a pen name, and they weren't selling. Later, I changed them to my name, and they sold.
Because people knew who you were.
Yes. Now, I did have some readers who were upset, and they weren't happy with the fact that I was now writing erotic fiction. But I wanted to get Winnie's story out, and I didn't care. I write hoping the audience will like it. But if I have a story that's pounding inside me trying to get out, I'm going to write it. I'm going to write it. And I did have people say, "I picked this up expecting it to be Granny Apples and Odelia, and it was filthy." And I went, okay. On the cover is a picture of a naked woman. What part of this did you not understand? It was not a ghost.
It had to do with Granny Apples.
Yeah.
That is a problem. I remember Martha Grimes wrote, I think it was a poetry book or something. It had nothing to do with her mystery series. My mom picked it up, and she was so bored with it, outraged it wasn't part of the series, whatever, that it took her a long time to read another Martha Grimes. So it is a quandary for authors to get that, in blazing lights across there. This is not what you're used to. And I think once they know that, then they're fine. I was just like, Mom, it doesn't say it's one of the mysteries, just don't buy another poetry.
I would even put on from time to time on the Winnie Wild series, this is not for my gentle readers.
Oh, good. Yeah, that covers it.
But they still wouldn't read that. They still thought if it had my name on it, it was going to be funny, it was going to be a mystery, and it was going to be squeaky clean. So,
It's hard. Well, Joanna Fluke, before she wrote her Hannah with the cookies and everything, right, she wrote dark books, and she had them under a different name, and she finally moved them back. So I don't know if she's got the same problem or not, but you've and I've talked to other authors who want to try even nothing like a big switch like erotica, just go outside their genre. In this case, to go humorous. And I was like, but it's still you. So, I like
it. It's still me, and I'm going to write what I want to write. And this is meant not as disrespect to my readers. I adore my readers, been with me for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But I'm the writer. I'm the one that wants to write this. You can choose to read it or not. Read the description of what the book is first.
Yes.
You can read it, not read it. I don't care. Well, I do care, but that's
right. But it's your choice.
Yeah. It's not my responsibility to monitor what you read. It's your responsibility.
Right. But I think that says something about how much people love your books, that they see your name on a book and they want to buy it.
They want to read it. Now, when my first, Madison Rose book came out, Murder in Vain, I had somebody who reviewed it on Amazon and said, I'd give it no stars if I could. It's nasty. Don't read this. If you enjoy her other work, don't read it. It's just an awful book. It's since been taken down. It was up there for years. I don't know why it's taken down now. But anyway, I used that bad review to push the book even more.
Why not? Why not? You kind of don't have any control. I just read a review on my book. The thing with the free book, because I made the first of my series free, is that lots of new readers try and read it. And mine are satire, which not everybody gets. Because I made a reference to the perfect Aryan couple, because they were all blonde and blue-eyed and everything like that. And the person called me a right-winger and a bigot because I thought this was beauty perfection and other things and I was like, well, not everybody gets satire,
yes.
And at first I was horrified.
That's a very difficult genre to write, because chances are a lot of people are not going to get it.
And they think it's literal. And at first my feelings were hurt. And then I thought, it's one reader.
Yeah.
There's so many others that do get it. So I can't, I feel bad that they really thought it was a bigot. But so, yeah, it's difficult. You can't control what the readers see or what they look for.
And you can't control, you can help them understand why you're moving in a different direction. Like My Dead Woman Driving. When I first did that, that's a serial novel. It comes out in episodes. And, that's nothing new. Charles Dickens did it. Stephen King has done it. Margaret Atwood has done it. That's nothing new. But when I first brought out the first episode and the second episode, of Dead Woman Driving, I had readers up in arms. I don't want to read it piecemeal. I want to read the whole book. I want, well, now we're 8 episodes in, and now they can't wait to read the next one.
Yes, which is the purpose of a serial. Indiana Jones. I remember when that came out, and they were like, it's just like the serial novels. It's going to leave you hanging.
Yes. So, sometimes it's like they don't like change, but if they're open-minded, they find, oh, this is good and this is different.
Yeah, I'm very set in my ways. It wasn't until I met Kim Taylor Blakemore that I stepped out. I mean, I usually read like Golden Age mysteries. And then it's more than a couple years now, I started testing the waters with, contemporary authors. And I was like, oh, okay, there's some good contemporary authors. And then I met Kim and read historical suspense. And I was like, Wow, this is, now I've gotten, my Kindle list is just unbelievable. But yeah, it's good to like step out once in a while and try something different.
And
Because
sometimes as the author, we need to give them that nudge. You know,
yes,
like reading my work, try this.
yeah, you're gonna, yeah, but you know, give them the, hold their hand.
Yeah.
You know, not that readers are ignorant or anything, but it's, they don't have time to research everything. So it's up
Right.
to us to tell them, you know, here's what this is. It's a little bit different. Did you consider Kindle Vella as a way to release it?
No. Well, I had already released several episodes when Kindle Vella was launched. And I researched Kindle Vella to say, well, is this a platform I can use for this easier? And I decided against it for my use anyway. I mean, I'm sure there are authors who love it. First off, they only limit you to 5,000 words. It's really for short.
Okay.
Short. But Amazon also claims exclusive rights to it.
Oh, do they? Okay. I did
You
not know that.
cannot put in wide distribution.
Okay.
I have a lot of readers who will not go to Amazon. And all my books, whether they're short stories, novellas, or full novels, are all in wide distribution for that reason.
Yeah.
And even though most of my sales are on Amazon, I still make
royalty the option.
For the others. They want the option. And so I didn't like that. And I'm not sold on this readers having to buy tokens in order to buy your work.
Yeah.
Like I said, it might work for a lot of people, but when I researched it and read all about it, and I thought, okay, this might work for others, but it's not going to work for me.
Right. How about the other, I mean, I just saw so much on other technology. Some people use AI as a plot generator. Joanna Penn was just talking about using the virtual reality and recording virtual reality, giving a tour of the sites where the murders take place and stuff. It's just going weird gangbusters out there. Have you looked at any of the new technology? Are you interested in any of it?
I like the idea of giving people a virtual tour of where the book takes place. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
But like, I don't want anyone, helping me with my plots. I just find that when you introduce AI into writing, you remove some of the organic part of it. And for me, writing is very organic, and I don't want that. Every word I write comes out of my head. It comes from my head, out of my fingers, onto I work on an iPad, and my cat just saw a ground squirrel. No, you're not going out there after. I don't know. Again, everybody is different, but I just find that really removes that organic connection between the writer and the reader. I just find writing too personal to use that. And I remember when I first started writing, they didn't have any of these things, but what they had books that could help you generate characters, character traits, plots. They were in book form. And somebody gave me one, and I'm looking through it, and I went, no, that takes away the things I'm feeling.
It kind of feels like you're shopping.
Yeah, it feels
Here's
like
my list. I'll pick this characteristic and that location. And I totally understand that.
It's like Mr. Potato Head. Well, what eyes are you going to put on him today? And what hat? And what? No, no, I just, every time I look at that, and I always do try to look at something new and see, will this help me? Yeah. And I always go back to the old way. It's the same. People say, oh, do you use software for your writing, special writer software? No, I use Word in my fingers. This is it. That's all I write with. And I have no intention of using anything else.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of old fashioned that way, but it works for me.
Yeah. And that's it. Whatever works for you. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was handwriting things because, I mean, there is a different connection in your brain when you're handwriting things and then typing it up and then going from there. But As I get older, I appreciate the word processor.
Right.
Now you also, when we mentioned your nonfiction, you have a Patreon site. And for those who don't know what Patreon is, it's Patreon, and Patreon is a place where you can subscribe to things. Now the journal is your Patreon site, which is patreon.com/Sue Ann Jaffarian, easy enough to remember. And subscribers can choose different levels of membership to receive news and photos of your life on the road, free books. Could you tell us more about that and what members can expect?
Yeah. I decided when I first got on the road that I was going to keep a daily journal, because I'm also writing a travel book. And I thought that would help me remember the things I see, how I felt, things like that. And then a friend, musician friend, said, you ought to put that on Patreon. So I heard about it, but I didn't know much about it. So I, again, researched it, and I decided I'll give it a try. So my Patreon site for 4 years has been going strong. People come and go. I seem to have always the same number of patrons, but people come and go. And for 4 years, every day, I write this every day. I write what happened in my day. Sometimes it's exciting. It's like I'm seeing the Grand Canyon, the painted desert. Sometimes it's sitting around camp and I talk about how I'm struggling to get my writing done, or I talk about Moxie bouncing out of the van through the screen door after a ground squirrel. Yes, that happened. I talk about my life on the road, and I always say it's the good, bad, and ugly. I mean, I talk about the days I've gone through depression going, oh, my writing's going nowhere. My black tank's full. So I write that every single day. And I was shocked at how it was embraced by, at first, my readers and my friends, and now people I don't know have come to it. Like I said, it doesn't have a huge following. But there are people who write me who have been on my Patreon page for almost the entire time, who say, and this is what's so touching. Sometimes I think, God, this is a lot of work, but I get, emails and messages from people saying, I will never be able to travel like you do because either maybe age or physical challenges or whatever, but they're armchair traveling through.
How wonderful.
And that really makes me feel good that, even the day-to-day stuff, and I put work in it. Like here I am sitting in a campground I've been here 2 weeks, but I can talk about the area and I research. I mean, I write that every day. And that's why my fiction is so slow getting out, because half my writing day is spent on nonfiction between the journal and articles for Winnebago and things like that. So I've I wouldn't say transitioned, I've added being a professional travel writer to being a mystery writer. And so half my day is taken up with that. But, if I'm in an area for a while, I'll research how did it get its name? What is the population? What is it known for?
Oh, wow.
And tell my patron readers all about that. One day I had a black tank issue, and sewage was dripping all over the ground.
Oh, no.
Every RVer's nightmare. And I chronicled how I had to find somebody to fix it immediately and things like that, and what it cost and all that. So they're on the daily journal, on my daily routine with me.
Well, there's a whole community of people that just love that life.
Yes. I recently started a YouTube channel, and again, it's called The Novel RV, Fat Woman Driving. And I talk about writing and van life and all kinds of things on there. And I do it every week. They come out on Tuesday, which my friend gave me this brilliant idea. She says, call it Sue's Day. And so every Tuesday, a new video drops on some topic that either somebody has asked me to talk about, or that I had a flash of, semi-brilliance and said, oh, I need to talk about this. And the videos are only like 5 to 7 minutes long. And that's been very popular. I mean, I'm not viral, but I mean, every week I get more and more visitors to the site, to the YouTube channel. And so, yeah, I'm kind of tapping into a lot of different things. And when I have a new book or a new story out, I talk about it on the YouTube. So I learned once I hit the road that this was a good way of reaching more than just the mystery community.
Yeah.
I get the RV people and camping people, and I meet new people in towns, and they'll say, oh, what are you doing? I have, bookmarks to hand them. It's really it's not a bookmark for a specific book, but for me and what I'm a journey. And I can give that to them. And I widened my audience by hitting the road is what I did.
I can imagine. And it's got to be so cool to discover all these new places. I'm wondering, does that influence your fiction writing at all? Have you thought of places you want to set?
Yeah, because Dead Woman Driving, she goes to a lot of the places I go to. In fact, the campground I'm in now is one of my favorites. I come here every summer for at least 2 weeks. I spend 2 weeks here, and maybe I'll go to another North Dakota campground, which I'm leaving on Friday to go to another one. And she was actually in this campground in episode 8. And so, yeah, I have friends who travel in vans, and when they read those episodes, they go, I've been there.
That's fun.
No, the same with the Zelda Bowen. In the first one is that she's not in her RV yet. That's at the end of the book. She decides this is her life. In the second one, which I'm writing right now, called Dead Ringer, it's a mystery, but she's not the sleuth. She's not sleuthing out the mystery, but it does have a mystery to it. Again, she is currently in the book at one of my favorite campgrounds in Mississippi.
Oh, how wonderful.
So, yeah, I love to add things like that.
So people almost feel like they have an inside look at the characters and the places. Oh, that's wonderful. What a clever idea.
It's more like Odelia, really. It's, in fact, friends, when they read the first book, which is called Finding Zelda, which came out a couple of years ago, they said, this is like a young Odelia. She's young, she's slender, but she's funny like Odelia. She has that same kind of sarcastic wit and commentary going. Yeah. She's like young Odelia. And I also needed to attract a younger audience. I mean, Odelia and Granny Apples has a certain demographic. Yeah. And I wanted to try to reach a younger audience. And that's Zelda and Dead Woman Driving is attracting a younger audience.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about the serialized books. Can readers, just to warn them or not warn them, can they pick anyone up and read it and get the story, or do they need to start at the beginning?
Oh, that's something where you probably should start at the beginning to get the full story, because the first one sets up how she gets on the road and what she's escaping from and all that. Yeah. But book goes on, I guess, like anything, you can pick it up mid-series and hopefully it'll make you want to go back.
Okay. Fair enough.
But unlike a novel, like you can pick up an Odelia mid-series and there's enough backstory in there because I have more room to put it in. Right. There's enough backstory that you get the gist of what's going on. But in Dead Woman Driving, it's serial. We're going at each one plots out a new job she has on the road. Okay. Kate is kind of a fixer for a mysterious group. And each one is a new job or a new situation, but her story evolves through the series. So I think it's best to start at number 1. Yeah. They're 99 cents each. It's not, they're not $4.99 each. They're 99 cents each. But that one I think is best to start at the beginning. Definitely.
Okay. So what's next for you? You mentioned another Odelia Gray which I
Yes.
think people will be very happy to hear. What else what are you working on with that and with anything else?
Oh gosh. Well, Odelia will be out probably late 2023.
Okay.
Because for the rest of this year, I just turned in another Winnebago article, and I'll probably won't do any more for the rest of this year because those take research and travel and all. But for the rest of this year, I'm going to do episode 9 of Dead Woman Driving. It's almost done. Dead Ringer, I need to finish that, get that off my plate because I do have a third book, the story for the third book in my head to start. And the Granny Apple short story, which is holiday themed. So I need to get that out. And then next year, it's going to be about Odelia. And it's going to be book number 13 in the series. There's a lot of changes coming in Odelia's life. If people have read the last one, number 12, which is Too Big to Die, that was the last one under contract to a publisher. It doesn't pick up right there. It picks up a couple of years later. I decided to, since there was a couple of years hiatus between the last one and this one, to make that a reality, a couple of years. And I wanted it also to be dated after the bulk of the pandemic was over, when people aren't in lockdown, but still careful. And so that's coming out. But I'm also working on a travel book. I have a new agent. She's shopping it around as we speak. And it's nonfiction. So I'm still working on it as it gets shopped. And that's called I Sleep Around. And
I love it.
Yeah, it's called I Sleep Around. And it chronicles my first 3 years on the road. The first section is how I came to want to live this life and what it's like. And then the first couple of years on the road, including, the first 2 years really. And so I have a new agent and she's shopping that around. So I'm still working on that. I put time in on that every week and getting that moving along. So if it gets bought, I'm not, oh my God.
Surprise.
Surprise.
Well, it sounds like you are as busy as ever. And if you want to keep up with Sue Ann, you can learn more about her and her books and also find the link to the journal through her website at sueannjaffarian.com. Thank you so much. And I want to let people know that we overcame, between sunlight in her face and bad internet connections and a pushy dog and all sorts of things, we overcame and got this interview done. And thank you for persevering, Joe.
Well, and thank you for having me. This was so much fun. And it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. I haven't seen people in so long. Well, thank you. And you can find this on blackbirdwriters.com or the YouTube channel.